a lot of people. And again, I put my expectations very, very high because we knew when Paul Mainieri got hired last summer, this was not, something, not that it needed to be, because again, this program's not in a terrible place. They just need somebody that's going to bump it up to the next level, something that Chad Holbrook and Coach Kingston were not able to do since Ray Tanner stepped down. And Mainieri, again, the resume speaks for it. You really are going to put your faith in him that what he's telling you is the absolute truth, and we see that translate onto the field. Starting on Friday against Sacred Heart and continuing through the non-conference slate before you get into the onslaught that is the SEC with the series against Oklahoma coming up right at a month from now. I believe October 14th will be the first first game of that series, and then we obviously know you're off and running and trying to navigate what is oftentimes a murderer's row of the SEC. And this year SEC football was really, really tough, and winning the conference was not easy, as it often isn't every single year. We're talking about men's basketball and the fact that this is potentially the strongest conference we've ever seen in the sport. That is going to be challenging to win. We got Alabama and Auburn playing on Saturdays, number 1 and number 2. Women's basketball, obviously challenging as well. South Carolina, LSU, Texas, all these teams at the very top that make it hard. And you know what? Baseball may end up being the toughest out of all of them to win if we're being completely honest, because you already have a ton of loaded teams. You're welcoming in, programs with good history and good tradition like Texas and Oklahoma that are only going to make it that much tougher. So, Paul Mainieri's job is not easy in year number 1. But again, he was brought in here to bump this team up to the next level. So we're not wrong for having high expectations in year number 1 that for a lot of people, the minimum is making it to Omaha. For other people, including myself, at the very least, make it to a super, which again, that's the last thing that Coach Kingston did 2 years ago. But if you can at least get there and look competent and say, okay, well, next year's the Omaha year, whatever it may be, I think that'll satisfy a lot of people too. But the whole, hey, let's just make the tournament again, that's not it. He was brought in here to be better than that. And that's what we hope to see happen starting on Friday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you think about this for a minute, right? All right. So in my time here, let's see, Lamont Paris was hired, got here at the end of Shane's first season.
Yep.
And I wasn't here for when Mark Kingston was brought in. All right, so you think about it for a minute. All right, what was the real expectation for Shane Beamer? Coming in first year, year 1.
If you can manage to win more than 3 or 4 games, everybody will say, okay, that was progress.
Right, because remember, he was to the College World Series. LSU won a championship and went to multiple College World Series. They were a regular participant in Supers. Supers just set reservations for LSU after a while, right?
Sure, and they still do.
This is a dude, absolutely. This is a quote-unquote dude. And he comes in with a ton more. He's got more expectation on him. And really, I mean, when Dawn came in, she wasn't like what you saw from Shane or Lamont, but still, no one was saying, all right, Dawn, year 1, get the Final Four. There is more expectation on Mainieri in year 1 than Dawn, Shane, and Lamont. Throw in Frank Martin, all of them put together.
Yeah, I agree.
This is a guy. Hey man, no ramp up. As soon as you step here,
you got to hit the ground running.
Exactly.
And here's the thing, because where this program was last year when they decided to make the coaching change, it's not like it was down to the dumps. It's not like it had fallen apart and there was no hope for it. They were good, but they weren't great. And again, Coach Kingston, that was kind of the story of his tenure. Good teams, but never great teams, and teams that were never really capable of getting all the way to Omaha, which is a place that this fan base expects you to be at more often than not. And again, not being able to, not only that, taking the step back last year, going from being in a super, taking on Florida, to then regressing to not even hosting a regional and getting bounced in that one at NC State last year was too much of a step back in people's minds. That's why they made the change. And, now you bring in, obviously Coach Mainieri, who, again, is inheriting a good roster. You bring in guys from the transfer portal that we think are going to be really, really good players, and we're going to have to see how it all plays out, obviously. But, yeah, the expectations are high.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Mark. What Kingston did here would be good in a lot of places, right?
Sure.
This guy would be, wow, we got a heck of a baseball coach. This guy got us to the playoffs. We got to a super.
You go to Purdue and do that.
Yeah.
You're
I mean, where he's
Coach
at
for life.
now?
Yeah,
Where Kingston's at now at Creighton.
Yeah, that's great. That's fine. But again, it's different down here.
It's different down here.
Means more.
It does. And you and I were kind of not laughing about it, but kind of like, okay, kind of gently laughing about. Because we were sitting there and you were talking about, about SEC basketball. We heard, and we'll play the Jay Billis cut during the show about this might be the toughest conference in the history of college basketball in the modern era of college basketball.
Yep.
This year's SEC in hoops. Then we talk about, that SEC in football, the best conference in America. It just means more.
Yep.
SEC basketball could be the best conference ever.
Yep.
This year. And SEC baseball year in and year out is like it's the best conference in college baseball.
Yep.
What's one constant in all this?
The SEC.
You don't come here and play around. I mean, and women's basketball, it's gotten better here. I mean, it was very top heavy. LSU with Kim Mulkey gave South Carolina somebody to run with.
Sure.
Is Tennessee going to be better than they've been? I mean, they're obviously not Pat Summitt Tennessee, but are they going to start being a higher echelon team in the SEC and in the country? I mean, that was a nice win at home over UConn. They hadn't beaten UConn in 100 years.
Yeah.
So that was a really nice win. But right now we know men's basketball, baseball, and football, the SEC is far and away, as I wonder if that was on video, was far and away the best conference in these sports in the country.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And you just, Paul, good luck, man.
Well, and look, you've hired a guy that's commanded teams that have been a part of this conference. Because, like, the basketball thing's a more recent phenomenon. Because, again, you go back 10 years ago, it's like, oh, Kentucky's really good. And, hey, Florida won some national championships. But then it was kind of not a whole lot after that, where now it's everybody. Everybody in the conference going to make a tournament with the exception of like Carolina and LSU, it seems like. But baseball's for a long time been at the top of their respective sport. And Maneri's very well aware of that. And again, commanded an LSU squad multiple times that was seen as the best in that conference.
Yeah, so I mean, for Paul Maneri, not only do you have a ton of expectation, but you have a ton of expectation in the best conference in America, where again most of the teams are picked to do major damage through the season. So that's all you got, Paul, coming in here, man.
Well, and he's not shied away from that.
No,
he knows.
He shouldn't.
Look, he knew when he took this job. He knew what Coach Tanner had built here, and again, they're buddies. They respect each other as competitors, and he knew he wasn't going to come in here and be accepted as, hey, you went 500 in your first year. Congratulations. Like, no, it's not good enough.
I mean, the guy before you did better than that for the most part. Here, look, Paul Maneri took this gig to get this program back to where it was under Ray Tanner. That's what Paul Maneri was hired to do. He knows that. He gets it. Look, he didn't shy away. Think about it for a minute. He was at Notre Dame, got to the College World Series. And think about that. At that time, Notre Dame, he didn't rebuild Notre Dame. So that's not what Paul Maneri did. He took a good program and got it to the next step where it went to the College World Series.
Yep.
He went to LSU, which was a really good program, with an iconic coach who had stepped down and moved to the AD chair, whatever the case. So you had a lineage at LSU. So you didn't take over a rebuilding program at LSU. This is not a rebuilding program at South Carolina. So, again, Paul Maneri's been in this spot 2 different times. And at LSU, last time I checked, they have a little bit of expectation on baseball at LSU.
Yes, they do.
So you're coming to a place with a ton of expectation on baseball, that really loves the game of baseball, that wants to get back to being what they used to be. Really, in a lot of ways, are demanding to get back where they used to be. And I feel like this is the right guy for the job. We'll see how it goes. He's got guys around him who understand today's college athletic landscape with NILs and transfer portals and all that stuff. And, okay, like you said, hit the ground running like Usain Bolt. That's what you got.
Yep.
There's no ramp up here. So it all gets cooking on Friday. We'll be hanging out. Village Idiot, Jay Phillips, Tyler Head, a cast of thousands as we do our baseball pre-game show before everything gets going.
Here, Brian has an asparagus pizza apparently right now.
That's interesting.
If he can convince me to like asparagus.
Yeah, I mean, I'm if I'm picking pizza flavors, typically asparagus not coming to my mind, dude.
But he's a wizard with that kind of stuff.
I mean, Brian Glenn, he might even be able to make a pizza out of like sauerkraut that I'd eat. Nah, that's not happening. Halftime show. David Ayers steering the ship. Tyler Head, Terry Ford. Come back in here. Dawn Staley on Carolina Calls last night. We'll hear what Dawn had to say about the loss to Texas and moving forward this week against Florida and UConn. That's next here on the Halftime Show on the Game. halftime show with David Adair running the ship, and Tyler and Terry here on the game. Dawn Staley on Carolina Calls last night with Brad Mueller talked about a variety of stuff. Dawn also spoke for about a minute and a half about having that long SEC win streak snap. Now, again, sooner or later you're going to lose. That's the way this thing goes.
Sure.
You're not going to go the rest of your life not losing an SEC game. You know it's going to happen. And here's Dawn, cut 9, Dave, talking about having that SEC win streak snapped at Texas last weekend.
Anytime that we lose, it seems it elevates everybody else. Yep. When we win, it's par for the course. I know that's part of it. Like, I think there is some South Carolina fatigue around women's basketball, but I mean, I'm okay with it. You can be fatigued. We put good teams on the floor. We perform at a high level. We do it the way, I think we do it the way any other team that you see out in the country should do it. Like, you do it with, incredible hard-nosed defense. You get talent to, put you over the top from an offensive standpoint. You draw, like, historical crowds at home. Like, how can you be fatigued off of doing it the right way? But that's the way it is, and we're okay with it. Like, we understand when we lose a basketball game why we lost. Is when you don't know why you lost, when you don't embrace, this part of the journey. Yes, it hurts. Yes, you don't want to lose. Yes, you want to win all the games. But for us, for this particular team, when we lose a game, we learn and we move forward and we correct what we need to correct. And usually it ends with, us starting another winning streak.
I mean, look, you're going to lose. And like Dawn said, for some reason when they lose, it's like everybody else gets elevated, or it's almost like, well, maybe South Carolina's just not as good as everybody thought they were. Or, wow, maybe Texas is awesome and fabulous.
It's the dynasty loss syndrome. Look, it happens with Alabama when they would lose under Nick Saban. It's happened, when the Patriots would lose in the playoffs under Bill Belichick. We just saw the phenomenon the other day with the Chiefs losing against the Eagles. Like, oh, my God, what's wrong with them? Well, nothing. They just lost a game. It's not the end of the world, and the Chiefs are probably going to be right back in the mix for the playoffs and the Super Bowl coming up next year as well. And look, Dawn Staley's crew is no different. They are expected to win and usually dominate most of their opponents. When it doesn't happen, it's like, oh, my God, is this the end of the dynasty or whatever? No, because I still believe, like most people do, that they still have all their goals in front of them. And if they're hosting another national championship here in about 2 months' time, I'm not going to be shocked by it because, again, they're that good. Can they learn from what happened on Sunday? Absolutely, just like they did against UCLA, and be a better version of themselves because of it. And look, nobody cheers for losses, but Dawn says, okay, we lost. How can I take what went wrong on Sunday and use it to show them and make them better going forward? And she's really good at doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, give Texas their props. They were at home. They came here and got embarrassed. They're a good basketball team, and they dictated their style and their tempo and their want of how they wanted to play on a South Carolina, and they won the basketball game. So you got to give Texas their props. And the thing about when you look at it moving forward is, okay, like you said, now Dawn Staley can coach. Now I can coach.
Yes.
No coach wants to lose, but if you do lose, now you go, okay, I get their attention. Mm-hmm. When you've won 7 billion games in a row in conference, and you do your cut-ups and your splices and your edits in your video, and you sit there because you want to show how good the other team is, or you're sitting there telling your squad, we can lose, this team is this or that, blah, blah, blah. And when you're dealing, oh, hell, sometimes you're dealing with grown professionals, but when you're dealing with 18 and 22-year-olds, they're like, yeah, coach, we got this. You're just, yeah, sure, coach. Have you seen us play, Coach?
Yeah. No, there's an element of, hey, what we're doing is working, why we need to change. But when you have a loss, and I'm sure Monday's practice was not fun, say, oh, well, maybe we do need to change some things.
Yeah, and
or just do things better.
Right, and they're going to tighten some things. They got to get better with consistent rebounding, especially against teams who might have an advantage physically in the paint on them. Because, look, the one thing about losing Ashlyn Watkins and losing Camila Cardozo is not just height, but there was a sort of a toughness in the paint from both of those players. And now you don't have it. Look, again, Shania Fagan got in foul trouble against Texas. And once Shania Fagan got in foul trouble, it's like now, it's human nature. If you ever play basketball, you get in foul trouble, you are now less aggressive.
Yeah, you're just timid because you're, walking a fine line.
Right. So Shania Fagan was not as aggressive as she typically would be inside. And she's really the only one. Look, Joyce Edwards is very skilled, but, we're not looking at her saying, ooh, enforce her. Chloe Kitt's very skilled. We're not going, Chloe, get down in there and drop a few elbows on people. But you really don't have that physical presence in the paint when it comes to whether it's rebounding, shot blocking, just enforcing your will defensively, down low, whatever you. So you're going to have to figure that out because you're going to be in a slobber knocker in the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
Might not be the Elite Eight, but at some point you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and bow up and have a brawl
For sure.
because there are going to be teams that want to drag you into that. And you're going to have to be able to find a way to gut that kind of stuff out. So the rebounding and just, inside the physicality is going to be something. And then we talked about this yesterday. When South Carolina's not forcing turnovers and getting points off of turnovers and easy layups and things like that in transition, in the losses, they've struggled to consistently be able to score in the half court. Now, in other games, they do it with no problem, right?
Right.
But in the two losses, you've seen some stuff, and even Dawn will say, they took us out of the things we wanted to do in the half court. You got to get that fixed. Because, again, that's coming.
Sure.
You're going to have a game in the NCAA tournament where you're not getting a ton of points off transition or a ton of steals or a ton of turnovers, and you're going to have to execute in the half court for 40 minutes.
Right.
And so those are two big things. Look, this team's fine. Team is fine. It's not a big deal. That winning streak was going to end at some point. And moving forward, you got a couple things, obviously, you're going to have to, work on. But this team is still going to be right there at the end.
Yeah.
There's nothing that changes anybody's mind. What happened last weekend in Austin.
No doubt.
Just give Texas their props. Good job, Texas.
Yeah. No, and look, there's a very good chance these two teams see each other again in Greenville or the NCAA tournament or something along those lines. So we'll see.
The men, we'll get to that in a minute. But first, Mia O'Brien, who does the women's basketball podcast, will be popping on with us at 2:30. She talks everything women's basketball, and we'll have her focus on the women's collegiate game, South Carolina, and some of the topics that are revolving around women's basketball in college for this season. So we got Mia coming up at 2:30, and she'll jump in and talk with us there. Also, our over-under contest, Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. Just go to 1075thegame.com. You see the Gamecock Traditions image come up. You click that baby. The over-under is 1.5 home runs this weekend by Ethan Petrie. If Petrie hits over 1.5 home runs in the 3-game series, that's the over. If it's under, obviously that's the under. Pick whichever one you think it's going to be. Put in your information. If you get it right, you will go in the hat with everybody else who gets it right. A name will get pulled, and you could win the gift certificate from Gamecock Traditions. It's the Gamecock Traditions 1075 The Game Over-Under contest. All right, the men played. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but just in case you woke up, we'll get you caught up in the world of sports next. It's sponsored by our buds at the Gutterman Halftime Show. Tyler Head, David Ayer, Terry Ford, till 3 on the game. Just in case you woke up, here's some of the stuff going on in the world of sports on the halftime show. Tyler Head, David Ayer, Terry Ford here on the game. All right, this was interesting. Cam Newton decided he wanted to do a little talk. He's been doing a lot of talking, has Cam Newton.
Well, he's on every conceivable show now.
He's everywhere, right? He's everywhere now.
With the big hats.
Yeah, with the big hats and the clothes and all the stuff that God love him. You do you, man. Whenever I see somebody dressed like that, I think about my old neighborhood where I grew up. I think to myself going, would it be 2 steps, 4 steps, or 6 steps? You'd walk through my neighborhood like that before somebody beat the hell out of you.
May not get out your front door.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, I just left. It's like
the smart thing would be to not wear it at all.
Well, yeah, it's the kind of thing like Russell Westbrook. You see how what Russell Westbrook would dress going into game, going to the arena. You can do that when you're that level of a celebrity.
Sure.
In that certain arena, and it's fine.
Yeah, and you also have security.
Yes, if you did that like just a regular person, be like, how stoned is that guy?
Yeah.
But you can get away with it when you're like, I always used to love watching those clips of like, the fashion shows.
Sure.
And they're wearing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, they're wearing garbage bags.
Exactly. Yeah. Putting a garbage bag on, or they're wearing something ridiculous, like they're, it's just ridiculous, weird stuff. And you would sit there and go, who wears that in public?
Yeah. Well, there's a line, depending on your level of income, where it goes from being, what's wrong with them, to, oh, my God, that's high fashion.
I've got to get one of those for myself.
Yeah.
I need garbage bag pants.
If you see a homeless woman wearing a garbage bag, you're like, ooh. If you see Kim Kardashian wearing one, you're like, I got to get me one of those.
I'm going to go right to the store and buy me some garbage bags. Yeah, that's what we do. And so Cam Newton has become this guy. And Cam was on a podcast with Travis Hunter, who is going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, won the Heisman Trophy. And here's Cam Newton talking about the situation he walked into in Carolina as a rookie. Hit it, Dave.
When I was the first pick, I went into a locker room of losers.
How did you handle the pressure of being the top pick?
Let's put it in perspective. You're the top pick because what?
Where you play.
No. You're looking at it from a personal situation. I'm talking about from the professional situation. You're the top pick because that was the worst team in the NFL the year before. For me, I wanted to be the number 1 pick. You could potentially be the first pick, but bro, you have no way of impacting the game like a quarterback does. You can lock down the number 1 receiver. You can make impact plays on offense all you won't, but it's still not like a quarterback. My issue is when I was the first pick, I went into a locker room of losers. Guys didn't know how to win. Guys didn't know how to prepare. It was a culture shock for me. The games don't mean a lot to a lot of people in the league like you would expect. It's just money. Not everybody has capabilities to be impact players. They're just players.
Look, okay. That, by the way, that group of losers, they were 2-14 in 2010. Year before, though, the team was 8-8. And that group of losers, by the way, in 2009, or 2008 rather, were 12-4 and won the division, were in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Then fell to 8-8, and the bottom dropped out at 2-14. And so some of the players from that group of losers, not very happy.
No, Captain Munnerlyn said for him to say that we were losers was a slap in the face. This was a team who was 2 years removed from playing in the divisional round against the Cardinals. Lost a couple pieces. We had checked down Jimmy Clausen at quarterback, and we had a bad year. For him to say losers was crazy.
Now, right, so if you're Jimmy Clausen, you're like, what would I do?
What did I do?
Why am I collateral?
I don't know where Jimmy Clausen is now, but he caught a stray.
Absolutely.
Years after his career ended.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Jimmy Clausen was terrible.
Yeah, he wasn't good.
I mean, we know that.
Was it Kuiper or McShay that was on like the ultra Clausen bandwagon that this guy's going to be the biggest superstar you've ever seen? And we all saw what happened.
Was it? I can't remember which one it was, but you're right. He's going to be a steal for someone. Oh, this and that and that and this about Jimmy Clausen. Well, that's the first time I've heard Jimmy Clausen's name being said in
check
forever.
Down Jimmy Clausen.
By the way,
he didn't just say we had a bad quarterback. He named him.
He's got a nickname for him. Here's the other part, too. So Captain Munnerlyn is mad that Cam Newton publicly called them losers.
Yes.
But Captain has no problem publicly ripping up Jimmy Clausen, right?
That tells me Jimmy was probably not a popular guy in the locker room.
Yeah, Jimmy, no love. So this is a team, yes, in 2008, went 12-4. 2009 was at 500 at 8-8. In 2010, went to 2-14. But there were a decent amount of players in that locker room who had been successful in those previous seasons. And Cam, obviously rookie of the year, threw for over 4,000 yards his rookie season, was the MVP in 2015, all that stuff. And Cam, that 2015 season was just sick. He was never that good before or after, but he was a good quarterback and at times was special. But come on, bro. You act like you walked in and you parted the Red Sea and you made water out of wine and you made winners out of losers and you said, all of you, touch me and it'll be fantastic. It's like, and I can't remember the name of the soccer, but you didn't watch Ted Lasso.
No.
Well, what was it? Season 3, early season 3, season 2. They got like one of the best players in professional soccer to play for them, and he was almost like that. Come touch me and be great. Come touch me. Come get near me as I breathe, and you'll breathe in my air, and you'll become special. That's almost like Cam Newton. I'm in the locker room now. I'm Cam Newton. Everybody, come touch me.
Yeah.
And you'll be great. And that really wasn't the case. Yes, was Cam an upgrade from check down Jimmy? Yes. But there were also some good football players in that locker room. Steve Smith, first of all, I'll say this. Steve Smith played in Baltimore for a couple years. And before that, we know Steve Smith's history of punching his teammates.
Yeah, he's a tough guy.
If I'm Cam and I'm doing like media stuff, I might want to stay away from Steve. I don't care how big Cam is.
Sure.
Steve Smith doesn't care how big Cam is.
Yeah. Steve Smith, I don't think he's ever shied away from a fight.
Yeah, Steve Smith is one of those dudes. It's that fire is always burning.
He's one of those guys that if he's your buddy and he's your friend, he's the best little friend you ever have. If you cross him, he's going to hurt you.
Yeah, Stephen Davis, who he knocked out, was a pretty big dude too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would. If I was Cam, I'd stay away from Steve Smith. And Jordan Gross said something about it. So there were a handful of his teammates from the Carolina days not real happy. Look, Cam Newton now is in the hot take world.
Sure.
And he made a hot take.
And he was trying to help out Travis Hunter. And I get what he was trying to say and the message he was trying to get across. But I think he went about it in the wrong way and angered a lot of people in the process.
I think you're correct on that. Probably would do that different if you could.
Maybe so.
Or maybe not. Cam, again, once you get in that world, man, some people, they just get gun-ho. They get gun-ho when they get in the hot take world. So, Cam, congratulations. Nice job. All right. Kevin Durant hit the 30,000-point club last night for the Phoenix Suns. And to me, Kevin Durant is the greatest offensive player I've seen in my lifetime. No one, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, there is no high-level scorer who can score everywhere on the court like Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant could get the ball and look at you and go, okay, all right, bro, how you want me to destroy you? You want me to make a three? Okay. All right, I made a three. What do you want now? You know what I'll do? I'll put the ball on the deck. I'll take 3 dribbles. I'll pull up at the free throw line, and I'll drop one in your eye. Okay, I did that. Now, would you like me to drive by you and dunk? Okay, would you like my left hand or my right hand? You know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to go into the paint, and I'll throw some low post moves on you.
Right.
No one has the array of tools to beat you scoring the basketball than Kevin Durant.
Right.
I've never seen him off. And by the way, he does it in a highly efficient manner. Look at Kevin Durant's field goal percentages in his lifetime from 3-point, 2-point. He doesn't take a lot of shots. He's not Russell Westbrook needing 30 shots to score 25 points. Yeah. Kevin Durant is a phenomenal offensive player. And really, is there a guy who's got more burner accounts?
Probably not. I think he's the king of that.
And is there a more thin-skinned superstar than Kevin Durant?
Also probably not. Though, I don't know. There's a lot of fragile egos in the NBA.
Yeah, the NBA is filled with divas. And Durant can also pass it. He rebounds. He's a good defender. The biggest thing that people have problems with, the biggest thing Kevin Durant is not a leader, but he wants to be. He's just not, no offense. And there are people who hate him because he went to Golden State. But Kevin Durant's unbelievable. By the way, speaking of the NBA real quick, the Dallas Mavericks, did you hear the story about the fans?
Yes, I did. They had to escort the one out for saying "Fire Nico" on the big screen.
It's got Fire Nico. There were signs Fire Nico, and that's the GM Nico Harrison who made the Luka Doncic trade. Mark Cuban got into a back and forth with some possibly inebriated fans over the whole thing.
Possibly.
Okay, so they were inebriated.
You just traded away our best player, and we're supposed to not drink?
Was Nico drunk when he made the trade?
Maybe.
Look, there's kind of a weird walk here on this. Pulling people out of the stands because they're voicing their displeasure. I think it almost comes off as like communist the way they're doing it.
Sure.
Like Fidel Castro like.
Yeah.
Look, those fans have every right to be upset.
Of course.
They just do. It's a bad trade. And I think you've got to kind of handle this with kid gloves if you're Dallas, because you traded an iconic player.
Don't make them angrier.
Yeah, just you got to figure out a different way to handle your business. All right, Firehouse Up text the hour next, 803-404-6100 on the halftime show here on the Game. Time to get our Firehouse sub text. The hour 803-404-6100. What do you got, man?
Like the coach said in the interview, there are 16 real good teams in the SEC. If we do make regionals or super regionals, that'd be great, but it's going to take a lot of good baseball to do that. That's why you're here. It's what you're brought in and expected to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, we know the SEC is hard. We get that.
Yep.
But you're supposed to be a reason why it's hard.
Yeah. You got to be one of those teams that nobody wants to play. One of those teams that, is going to do damage. That's what you're brought in here for because, again, Mark Kingston did a solid job, but solid's not good enough here.
Nope.
Okay is not okay. And you want to be a heavyweight. That's why Paul Maneri's brought in, to go back to being a heavyweight again. And, look, I think we brought this up yesterday that I think it was a texter or a caller or someone in the early game with Bill and Preston where, Mark always brought up, the SEC's hard.
Yeah, that was the crutch, right?
Tough league.
Coach, why'd you get swept by so-and-so? It's a tough league. We know that.
Yeah, we
get it.
We get it. You took the job knowing it's a tough league.
Yeah, you're supposed to be a reason why it's tough.
And other teams are playing in this tough league too, and they're doing better than you.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, yes, it's a tough league, but that can't be an excuse. If not, okay, go become part of the Sun Belt.
Yeah. And I don't know, and I feel like we always loop back around. We're not trying to pile on Coach Kingston.
No,
but
Mark's
the same
a good
thing,
guy.
When you get a new girlfriend, you talk about all the great things about her, which is usually saying, well, this is what the last one wasn't.
Right. When you say, that's what I always love in those press conferences. When the new coach, this coach, he's tough. Well, the last guy wasn't. Holds players to a high level of accountability. The last guy wasn't. You're always, when you hire someone, typically you're hiring someone because they're doing the things the other one didn't.
You say, you know what, that last coach didn't work out. Let's go for the exact same qualities that he had with our next coach.
Yes.
So you're going to find the opposite in a lot of ways.
Right. So you think when our exes go find someone new, they do that about us?
Impossible.
They couldn't do that, right?
How can you get better than perfection?
Exactly. How could they say bad things about us or say something about, hey, this new guy?
It was a them problem.
That's right. It wasn't us. I always say this. I got like 75 exes. What was the one constant in all those relationships?
Common denominator.
This guy.
And you know what? Hey, they let you get away.
That's right.
Always remind yourself of that.
I always have fun with my girlfriend. It's like whenever we have like an anniversary, Valentine's Day, I'm like, you celebrate this every day because you wake up with me.
Does she ever play like lottos, like scratch offs, or get a lottery ticket?
Every now and then. Very rarely. She will every now and then.
She ever says, hey, I'm going to go buy a lotto. Why? You already won the lottery. You got me.
When you scratch it off, my picture's going to come up 3 times.
Exactly.
Winner.
No, ma'am. You've already won. You can't buy this ticket.
You're with that guy. Anyway. But yeah, I mean, look, there's an expectation level no matter what. If you are going to coach in the SEC in basketball, football.
You coach here and got the resources that you have because this is a program that has a tradition and a history of winning, and that's what's expected out of the fan base. And, they will give you a certain period of time to get to where they think you need to be, and if you don't get there, they're ready to run you out of town. And for a lot of people, they probably kept Coach Kingston a little bit longer than they wanted to, and again, it ended up being, hey, it's not enough, and we're going to go find someone else.
Well, I mean, when Coach Kingston got to the Supers a couple years ago and then lost to Florida, there were some people in this fan base who were like, oh, seriously?
Because that prolonged it another year.
Oh, he's going to be back now. I mean, that's just, and that's, I could never root against my favorite teams.
Sure.
Even if I know the coach isn't the right coach, or I feel in my heart the coach isn't the right coach, or my favorite team needs a new coach, I couldn't sit and root for them to lose so we get the new coach.
Yep.
I just couldn't do it. But there were people in this fan base that you talk to.
Oh, I know.
And they would be like,
here we go again.
Yeah. Because they lost faith that Kingston could get South Carolina to Omaha.
Yep.
Even once, they lost faith. So that was a tough road at the end. Look, again, I like Mark. Mark's a good guy. And Mark did, again, what Mark did here in a lot of places, Mark would be there for life.
Yeah, but not here.
Not here. You got to be better. That's all. And Paul Maneri knows it. Paul Maneri has been phenomenal at LSU, at Notre Dame. He knows what's up. He knows how to get to Omaha. His GPS has been there many times.
Yep.
So it all gets started Friday.
Coach Kingston lives there now.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So he got to Omaha. So
did.
happy ending.
Eventually.
Happy ending for Mark. Hey, we'll be at Village Idiot doing what we do every year. We'll ramp up our halftime show from noon to 3:45, sort of like a pregame baseball show. Jay and Tyler will do it this year with a cast of a bunch of folks stopping in to say hi as well. Again, that's Friday, the Schroeder's Towing Road Show at Village Idiot on Whalen. Hey, football, a lot of it coming up next. Football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. David Dare on the board. Tyler Head, Terry Ford here on the game. This just popped. Speaking of football, according to sources, Matt Patricia will be the new defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Okay. You want to go first?
When he was with the Patriots, really good. Outside of that, not so much.
Okay, and you're right. So let's focus on the one place he was good, because since then he really hasn't been. All right, in New England, the head coach was Bill Belichick.
That's correct.
What was Bill Belichick's background?
Defense.
Who was looked at as one of the best defensive coordinators of his time?
Bill Belichick.
How much defensive coordinating do you think Matt Patricia did in New England?
It's kind of the big question.
Was it like this? Hey, Matt, here's the defensive game plan for the week. Here are my clothes. Take them to the dry cleaner.
It's very much the same thing, the conversation we had about Bieniemy a couple years ago. It's like, well, hey, look at the Chiefs offense. Yeah, but how much is he doing? How much is Andy Reid doing? Same thing with Matt Nagy now. Like, okay, he's the offensive coordinator in title, but how much is he actually doing when it comes to the play calling and the scheming and all that kind of stuff? And I think when you saw, when he went to Detroit to be a head coach by himself, it didn't work. And then they hired some kook that was talking about biting kneecaps, and that's gone pretty good.
Yeah, Matt Patricia was a disaster in Detroit, an absolute disaster. And he's been a disaster for the most part once he's gotten away from New England.
We talk about this all the time. What happens after you get fired as head coach? What job do you take after that? Tells a lot about what people think about you and your individual role. Again, longtime defensive coordinator for the Patriots, Super Bowls, all that kind of stuff. Goes and becomes a head coach for the Detroit Lions. After that, he became a senior football advisor for the Patriots, eventually became the O-line coach in 2022, and then this 2 years ago, 2023, was a senior defensive assistant with the Eagles. Yeah. So nobody wanted to hire him as their defensive coordinator after the Detroit thing fell apart.
Right. And he's going to college. I mean, they're going to pay him well at Ohio State, but he's going to college because nobody in the NFL will give him a defensive coordinator job or a head coaching job.
That's because he wasn't doing anything this past year.
Right.
He was on Julian Edelman's podcast a lot. But that was it.
I mean, all he does is pick food out of his beard.
But he's a rocket scientist.
Hang around. Sure.
Remember, he's a rocket scientist. That's why he had the pencil behind his ear, because he's smarter than all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a bad head coach in Detroit, but he also was like,
he was a jerk,
disrespectful.
Yeah, I remember he
would make the media wait forever in the press conferences.
He didn't like the way they asked questions. He
told him, remember the one guy, don't slouch?
Yeah, and he's up there in a dirty hoodie.
Yeah, with sweatpants that he wore in high school.
Food in his beard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, come on, man.
He was a wreck. So, I don't know what Ohio State's getting. It's kind of a head-scratcher hire to me. It's almost that hire where if you're Ryan Day, and I'm hoping this isn't what happened. I'm hoping that Matt Patricia came in there prepared with a plan and wooed and wowed Ryan Day with his possible schemes and systems of defense.
Sure.
I hope it isn't this. Ryan Day goes, well, who's defensive coordinator in the NFL? I mean, if you're defensive coordinator in the NFL, he worked for Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. I hope not.
I also hope, for the sake of this Ohio State team, the guys on defense, Matt Patricia does not view this as he's doing college football a favor and Ohio State a favor. Oh, I could be in the NFL, but I'm here helping you. Like, no, you have this job because, again, it didn't seem like anybody in the NFL wanted to hire you, or else you wouldn't have been sitting at home this past year. You're here for a reason. Treat it that way.
Right. Don't act like you're slumming with the college crew.
Exactly.
And we'll see if Matt Patricia's any good at this gig. He's going to have players.
Yeah.
Ohio State recruits 5 stars all over the place. So
sure.
Matt Patricia isn't going to be from lack of possible defensive playmakers. He's going to have them. It's just, what is he going to do as defensive coordinator? And right now he's sliding down the wrong way in his career arc.
Yes.
And for Matt Patricia, this is a chance to get himself back on the map. Sort of like Chip Kelly did. Chip Kelly, again, flamed out in San Francisco as a head coach, ended up at UCLA as a head coach, and was really moving himself to the hot seat when he left to go to Ohio State to be the offensive coordinator.
I forgot it. I just saw this. He did actually call plays for that Eagles defense at the end of 2023.
Oh, it was a disaster.
When it was a disaster, and
yes,
Sirianni had to clean house.
Yes. Remember, they moved him up because Sirianni got rid of his defensive coordinator because it was bad, and it got worse.
Then it got worse.
Remember, he also was the co-offensive coordinator that basically wrecked Mac Jones's career.
Yeah, that weird period of time where
Joe Judge and Matt Patricia became co-offensive coordinators for Belichick.
And neither one of those guys come from offense. Patricia was the DC. Joe Judge was the special teams coordinator before he went and became the Giants head coach. And I think Bill Belichick's idea of I can just put anybody anywhere and be successful backfired on them.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Patricia, it's just a weird hire. And if again, Patricia can do a good job, he shines himself back up. I mean, Kelly's now back in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. So if you were Matt Patricia, now here's your chance, right, to show that I know what I'm doing, and it wasn't Bill Belichick.
Yeah. This is a prove-it opportunity for him.
You get your shot there, Food Beard. Go get him. Go get him there, Pally. South Carolina, I thought this was kind of interesting. Just a little blurb that came up. South Carolina is chasing around another 5-star from the DMV.
Shocker. There's at least one every year, right?
Right now, Zion Ely, who's an edge pass rusher, 5-star out of the DMV area, right now verbally committed to Maryland, which means nothing. But it's not so much about the recruitment of this guy because look, Texas A&M's chasing him, Penn State, Auburn, Ohio State, Oregon, all the heavyweights, and South Carolina's in the mix as well. And like I said, right now committed to Maryland. Ely said something very interesting though. That what he said this. He goes, "Look, I'm not going anywhere because of NIL." And when you hear that, you go, "Yeah, sure, dude, whatever." But he said this, and I thought it was telling. He goes, "Look, wherever I go, you understand, I'm getting NIL."
Yeah, he knows it's going to come with him.
Yeah, I want to go. So I'm not really putting that as much emphasis on that because I know no matter where I'm going, I'm getting bags.
I love the honesty.
Yeah, he goes, I'm going to get taken care of.
Sure.
So that's not really the top of my list. It's off to the side.
Yeah.
I'm picking a football program on different things, not putting NIL in the top 3 because he's going to get it.
Yeah.
So he's looking at other stuff because he knows. I thought that was a nice piece of honesty, saying you guys understand who I am, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna get mine.
That's better than the watered down answer we get from a lot of these guys. I want to go a place that's going to develop me the best, and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not thinking about NIL. No, he's like, yeah, I'm going to get money. Yeah. I'm a 5-star. Of course I am.
That's what I love about it. It's look, I care about getting developed and going to a program that it's going to win and get me ready for the NFL. That's important. What about NIL? Bro.
Yeah, it'll happen.
I'm getting mine. Don't worry about it. That's not in my list because I know I'm getting it. So that was pretty interesting. And, of course, Ely is going to do an official visit to South Carolina. And that's why verbaling means nothing. And I almost at times, because people have gotten better at this, but there's still a percentage of a fan base that thinks when somebody verbals to you, it's really something. And it's nothing. It really is nothing, especially when a guy says, I'm verbally committed to whatever school. Then a week later, he's taking an official visit somewhere.
Yeah.
Nobody stops recruiting you. You don't stop going on official visits. Verbalizing somewhere means nothing.
If anything, it just places a team at the top saying, okay, well, if nothing else changes between now and signing day, this is where I'm going. But again, as soon as you commit somewhere, guess what? All those other schools are going to call you and be like, hey, don't give up on us now. Let's get you back out here. Let's show you what's going on and tell you why you need to come to us.
And what the verbal does for a player, really, is it says, okay, I'm verbally committed there. Now you top that.
Yeah,
why should I not go there now? Come on, what do you got? What do you got for me? Come on, Ohio State, South Carolina, Penn State, Auburn, Texas A&M. Why should I not go to Maryland?
That's why when somebody decommits from your school or doesn't sign with your school, leave them alone. Don't tweet at them. Don't email them. Don't send them nasty messages on Instagram because for whatever the reason is, and sometimes it is NIL related, they've thought that was the best opportunity for them in their career, and you got to let them do it.
They're moving on because you'd move on from them if you could get a better recruit.
Of course.
It's the way this is, man. It's just that.
Never tweet at high school recruits. It's my rule of thumb.
Yeah, it's not really a. It's more when you do that. It's more of a what you're about.
Sure.
It's almost like you need a life.
It's like, the kid's
You need a
17,
life.
right?
You understand that right now you're screaming vile things to a teenager
Yes.
that you've never met in your life.
Yes.
Do you really want to be that person?
I wouldn't.
I would kind of push you away from that, being that person. I hope you break both your legs. Really? Come on, man. Relax. And that's tame compared to some of the stuff.
You're not wrong.
It's just, I want your family to. Seriously? So we'll see where that goes. I thought it was just very interesting.
Or
that,
my favorite. We didn't want him anyway.
But Reddy, if he was somewhere else and flipped to you,
hey, glad to have him. Glad he's here.
love him, love him here. Give you a hug. It's sort of like transfer portal. You leave, you're not loyal. But when someone comes in from somewhere else where they're not loyal,
Sure.
come here, baby.
Sure.
We love you.
Well, it's
How about a big hug?
It's the same thing back, before NIL was legal. We all just kind of pretended like, our respective school, whatever it is, was not
Never do it.
partaking in nefarious acts when indeed everybody was. Mm-hmm. It was those guys over there. They're the ones that are the problem.
We would never cheat. Those guys did. Your school's always the only school that doesn't cheat.
Yeah.
Everybody else does. I always said this. I got to the point of, I got past all that, holier than thou garbage a long time ago. I'm like, look, I don't care if my favorite team cheats, you just better win. If you're going to cheat, you better win.
Yeah.
None of this, if you're going to cheat and lose, you got to get rid of you because you suck at cheating, right?
Yep.
If you're going to cheat, you better win. It was like, when Maryland won the national championship in basketball back in the early new millennium, then all of a sudden it came out later their GPA was low or something. I'm like, why do I care? I don't go watch them take tests.
Yep.
I don't go sit in biology classes with them. Not my problem. I don't really care what their GPA is. Just do me a favor. Go cut down the nets.
Mm-hmm.
I got tired of that holier than thou of all of our players are 4.0 Rhodes Scholars and they're Boy Scouts who help little old ladies across the street and they would never cheat. And my head coach is, beyond reproach and he's, of high moral fiber. And just go win. Let me enjoy you winning. And whatever you're doing to make the sausage, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. Just show me the end result.
Yep.
That's all I care about.
That's it. I'm not gonna be that phony, chest puffy. We're on some high moral ground. Nah.
Yep.
Nah. Just go win. I'm good. All right. So Carolina Calls. We heard Dawn Staley last night. Lamont Paris will be on Carolina Calls tomorrow at 6:00 with Derek right here on the Game in Columbia and our affiliate Myrtle Beach 100.3. And Lamont will also be heavily highlighted tonight. 6:30 pregame, 7:00 tip. Ole Miss coming to CLA as South Carolina takes on the Rebels. 4.5-point favorites, I think Ole Miss is, I believe. And all the metrics have Ole Miss winning.
Kind of falls in line with how they usually play ranked teams
Well, you
at
know
home.
what's really funny, real quick, is like the metrics for a team that hasn't won a game in conference. It's not like a 10 or 12-point number or 8-point number or something.
Best 0-10 team in the country.
Maybe in the history of basketball.
Maybe.
That'll be tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7:00 tip here on the Game, 107.5 the Game in Columbia and 100.3 the Game in Myrtle Beach. So I've heard coaches say this, and I do agree with it too, that we rank recruiting classes when these kids are coming in.
Sure.
Why don't we ever rank recruiting classes when they leave? Because that's really when you want to rank it. Coming in, they've done nothing for you. You re-rank it, what was their impact? So I believe was it The Athletic? One of these sites real quick I went to has re-ranked the 2022 quarterback recruiting class. See what they say. That's next. Halftime show. Tyler Head, David Ayer, Terry Ford. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the Game. We are cooking football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. David Dare's punching the buttons. Tyler Head, Terry Ford. We're rolling this baby up until 3 here on the game. Friday, of course, baseball season starts rolling. We'll be at Village Idiot on Whaley. It's become pretty much a tradition here. We will be at 12 noon, special edition of the halftime show, 12 noon to 3:45. And then we go right into pregame and first pitch at 4 against Sacred Heart. And like you say, you can hear it all right here on the game in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach as well. So, all right. And so I always like the idea of going back and let's take a look at re-ranking a recruiting class. You know, sometimes we kind of look at it like, all right, let's rank it as they come out of high school. But I think it's smarter to rank it after it's pretty much over, almost over, and see where it's at. So if you look back at 2022, and this is the Athletic re-ranking the recruiting class, the quarterbacks. Now, some of them held up to their ranking halfway decent. Some came out of nowhere, and some went. Some of the ones that went, for an example, Connor Wegman, number 2 overall quarterback in the 2022 recruiting class. Wegman obviously went through injuries. 2 years ago, looked good early in the year, then got hurt. Last year, struggled early in the year, got benched for Marcel Reed, and Wegman is now, Connor Wegman is now transferred to Houston. Ty Simpson, number 26 overall recruit, number 3 quarterback. Simpson went to Alabama, played small school, high school football, and has not really got ramped up yet on the Power 4 level. There are people who think Simpson's got a really good chance to start this coming up year. We'll see. But right now, that's what happened to Ty Simpson, the number 3 overall quarterback. The number 5 overall quarterback and the 40th overall recruit in general in 2022 was Walker Howard. Howard's only thrown 10 passes in his college career. Started at Ole Miss, went to LSU, now is going to Louisiana where he'll have a chance to start. Remember, Louisiana won 10 games last year. Devin Brown, number 6 quarterback overall in 2022. Sat at Ohio State, backing folks up for a couple of years. Now it seems like Julian Sayin, former 5-star recruit, will be the next quarterback up at Ohio State. So Devin Brown said, screw it, and he's transferred to Cal, where he's going to try to see if he can get himself a starting spot. Number 7 quarterback was Gunnar Stockton. Gunnar Stockton's going to get his chance now. You know, he drives a cool truck, and everybody loves him, and the truck's from like 1954. And Gunnar Stockton played at the end of the year when Carson Beck got hurt. So Gunnar Stockton, former 5-star recruit, will now finally get his chance to start at Georgia. Dude named Sam Horn was number 8 overall. Started at Missouri. He recovered from Tommy John surgery, also plays baseball. So he really hasn't played because of injuries. 2 other ones from that top 10. Nick Evers signed with Oklahoma, 1 year in Norman, went to Wisconsin, then to UConn, played 9 games. Wasn't really that special, but it was 9 games in, finally got his chance at UConn. And Brady Allen, number 10 overall, started at Purdue, went to Louisville with Jeff Brom. And so we'll see what Brady Allen does, because remember, Jeff Brom likes Brady Allen so much, he said, Miller Moss, you're in the portal. Why don't you come to Louisville and play? And so the Southern Cal former starting quarterback is going to land at Louisville, and it feels like Moss will be the will get the inside track to start. That's what happened to the top 10 guys who haven't popped. Some of the guys in that 2022 class who have done well, and this is interesting. You go to number 1, they're ranking them, Cade Klubnik at Clemson. He was the number 1 quarterback coming out of high school in 2022. And Klubnik really got himself back on the good list, Tyler, because he played well last year. Before Klubnik improving his performance, he was no ways on this list. He struggled 2 years ago.
Probably not. And he's looked at as being one of the better quarterbacks coming back for 2025. And in today's age of college football, having a guy stay at one place for 4 years, very rare.
Mm-hmm. And Klubnik coming back, and he improved this year, to be fair. Drew Aller at Penn State. 2 years ago, Drew Aller couldn't throw the ball past 10 yards downfield, despite the fact he had a bazooka for an arm.
Sure.
And Aller, this season, under our boy Andy Kay, the offensive coordinator at Penn State, Drew Aller really got better. Improved throwing the ball downfield, improved in almost all the metrics. Plus, Drew Allen, for a guy his size, can run. He can maneuver. Now we get to the interesting ones. Rocco Becht at Ohio State. They put it in Iowa State. Iowa State. It put it at number 3.
Okay.
Rocco Becht was the 572 ranked high school recruit coming out of when he was coming out of high school overall. The 33rd ranked quarterback, and he's 3rd on this list. 4th on this list is Kevin Jennings at SMU. When he's not throwing the ball to the other team, he does some good stuff.
I was going to say, we thought pretty highly of him until that playoff game against Penn State.
Jennings was the 95th ranked quarterback coming out of high school.
Okay.
And ready? The number 1,535th player overall. Fernando Mendoza, who's now at Indiana, who played at Cal, was in the portal. He was the 2,149th ranked player coming out of high school and the 140th ranked quarterback. And now he's number 5 on the list because of his production in college at Cal.
I was going to say, he was pretty sought after guy when he hopped in the portal this past offseason.
Here's one that's very interesting. Noah Fafita was last year kind of inconsistent, but Fafita the 2 years before was really good at Arizona. He was the number 38 ranked quarterback coming out in high school.
Yep.
Number 7, Josh Hoover at TCU was the number 41st ranked quarterback coming out of high school. Malik Murphy, Oregon State, was number 12. That's pretty good. Coming out of high school, started off at Texas, went to Duke last year, played really well at Duke, and then all of a sudden, to the surprise of everyone, took off to Oregon State.
Yeah, he's trying to see the world.
Oh, figure he's seen the Southwest with Texas, right?
Yeah.
You saw the East Coast with Duke, right?
Yep.
Oregon's pretty.
So I hear.
Just saying. Yeah, Oregon. The Oregon beaches are phenomenal. Phenomenal. We have time. Yeah, okay. Braden Fowler Nicolosi, and I always screw up his name, the kid at Colorado State, the number 86 ranked quarterback coming out of high school. He's number 9 on this list for how he's played in college. And Byron Brown can run around and do stuff. Byron Brown throwing it is hit or miss, but he was the number 73rd ranked quarterback.
Yeah, remember when
Alabama
they
game.
were in the game with Alabama and they couldn't throw the ball to save their
Brown
life?
couldn't throw the ball. He's put number 10 on this list. But again, only 2 guys from the top 10 coming out of high school are on the top 10 of production in college. You had Connor Wegman, Ty Simpson, Walker Howard, Devin Brown, Gunnar Stockton, Sam Horn, Nick Evers, Brady Allen. 7 of the top 10 are on the whatever happened to list, which just tells you, like always, yes, it's always fun to look at these high school rankings, but
Sure.
don't make it religion.
Right.
Just don't make it.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yes. Very interesting post real quick as we flip to the NFL. Aaron Rodgers will not be a Jet, to the really surprise of no one.
Nope.
But 2 things, the new brain trust with the Jets, when they met with Rodgers, said, okay, look, dude, there are 2 things we need you to do. 1, you have to attend all mandatory practices. Remember, last year, Rodgers came to the voluntary stuff and then didn't go to the mandatory because, well, he already had a trip planned to Egypt.
That's right.
He had to go to Egypt. I mean, he planned a trip to Egypt.
Is going to Egypt going to help you win football games?
Well, look how well the Jets did last. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's not the end-all, be-all of what you do, but A, when you don't show up for things and then you struggle and your team struggles, what's the first thing we're going to say?
Yeah, it's you.
Maybe you shouldn't have went to Egypt. 2, now Aaron Rodgers, my guess is he was okay with that part of this. But Rodgers would no longer be permitted to make outside media appearances during the season, including his regular paid appearances on the Pat McAfee show. That's where Aaron Rodgers knew.
Yeah.
Drawing the line, baby. And he makes like over $1 million doing that with Pat McAfee. We've been with Pat McAfee for a long time. I give the Jets brain trust, the new brain trust, a lot of credit here.
Putting your foot down. Saying, hey, you're either in for this team or we don't want you.
You're like the other 52 guys. You're not special.
Yeah, you're just another one.
And we see where that went.
They might be better off.
All right, football, the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, and David Dare. Come back in here. Myles Garrett. It would be a good thing to go get Myles Garrett.
Probably.
Maybe not. We'll talk about that coming up here on the Halftime Show on the Game. I'm sorry. I'm distracted by looking at the nestshowroom.com. Wow. It's ridiculous. If you are looking to improve the home in 2025, if that's one of the goals, one of your resolutions, maybe, maybe a new tub, maybe a new plumbing, new fixtures, new appliances, new lighting, whatever the case, your first phone call needs to be to the Nest, 803-978-2025. Unlike other places, you're just not going to talk to some schmo on the phone, and that schmo's going to go, yeah, we got this stuff like in aisle 32. Come on in. It's right next to the tires. No, you call that number at the Nest. They will ask you what you're looking for specifically. They'll put you in touch with an expert. There's 70 years of experience at the Nest. They'll put you in touch with an expert that will talk to you about what you're looking for, bring you in, give you a tour, and make it all happen for you. Again, call 803-978-2025, the Nest on Gadsden in the Vista. What you're talking about and we're talking about, there you go, Dave. Take 3. Football. And more football sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Very interesting post by Mike Sando regarding Myles Garrett I want to get to in a minute. But first, NFL.com, their mock draft is out. They have Tennessee taking Cam Ward number 1 overall. Hey, go ahead, man. I hope it works out for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking Ward or Sanders number 1 overall. I'm taking either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If I'm the Titans, I trade out. I trade out and accumulate more picks.
Yeah, because next year's the quarterback draft, or at least the next one.
No, that's where you tank some more.
Sure.
So if you're here's really quick, and then we'll get to where the Gamecocks are in this mock draft. If I'm Tennessee, I'm putting my process in place to get my quarterback next year.
Ideally, yes.
Because I don't believe in Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders as being that high-level, can't-miss, elite-type franchise quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Could I be wrong? Absolutely, I could be wrong. Good Lord, look, Brock Purdy's quarterback the team that's going to a Super Bowl.
But nobody took him in the first round.
They took him, exactly.
At last.
Right, so that's the difference. He was Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
So I don't think either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders is that level of guy taking it 1. I just don't believe in either one of them like that. But there are guys coming up in this next draft, Arch Manning, that if things work out this upcoming season, these guys could be that level of quarterbacks, right? Fair?
Ideally, yes.
So I'm going to put myself in position to possibly get one of those. What's the best way to do that?
Lose.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trading out a number 1. I'm going to trade down. If I don't want to stay and take Carter or Hunter, I'm trading down. I'm accumulating more draft capital. Because I want more draft capital, whether to use it in this draft or to be able to maneuver the draft board next year. And this season, again, I'm not going to try to lose, but my point is I'm not ramping up this year.
Nobody tries to lose. You just put a collection of players on the field that aren't going to give you the best opportunity to win.
Your front office tries to lose.
I was going to say, the DB that's squaring up for the tackle doesn't whiff on purpose.
No, you're not going to sit in the locker room before a game. And some people think this, which I think is funny. And the GM and the owner don't come down. All right, fellas, we need a loss. We're tanking here. We're trying to get the first pick overall to get a quarterback because those 4 quarterbacks over in the corner of this locker room all stink. So we need to get a quarterback. The way to do that, we're going to tank. Missed tackles, turnovers, penalties. That's what we need from you guys. Are we good?
Those guys are fighting for their own individual careers and jobs, and they're not going to risk looking bad because that hurts their bottom line and their money. So, yeah, if you're putting the worst combination out on the field that's not going to give you points or be able to stop other teams, then, yes, that's how you tank.
Right. Players don't tank. You don't lose on purpose. You just put yourself in the position to get beat. If I'm the Titans, I'm going to do that. I'm going to trade down, accumulate a lot of draft capital, try to get some really good young players through the draft this year, next year, and focus on getting my quarterback and rocking and rolling.
Yes.
That's what I would do if I'm the Titans.
If you're a Titans fan, look forward to 2026.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm not taking Cam Ward number 1 overall, like this mock draft from NFL.com. It's a 3-round draft. In the second round, pick 58, the Miami Dolphins, in a projected trade with the Texans, would take Nick Eamon-Warry, 58. 59, the Baltimore Ravens would take Kyle Kennard at South Carolina. And then, where's he at? I got to keep going. I just saw him. T.J. Sanders, I believe, in this draft is going, where'd he go? I hate when this happens. Here he is. 76 to the Dallas Cowboys in the 3rd round.
Okay.
Nothing surprising here. We're hearing the 3 South Carolina players we expect to hear going in the 2nd and 3rd round. Not a surprise. I've seen Sanders going higher than Kennard. I've seen Kennard as a 3rd-round pick. Eamon-Warry seems like he's going to be the one to go first out of the 3. But this doesn't surprise me where they're at in this mock draft.
No, sounds about right.
Not at all. All right, so Myles Garrett is the best pass rusher in the NFL. You would agree, right?
Yeah.
He's a dominant player. He's a guy that could go in conceivably and change a defense. He's going to come in and give you crazy pass rush, and he's also going to help your other guys get after the quarterback. So you got a dude who is looked at as a Hall of Fame level player.
Right.
This was interesting. Mike Sando pulled value, its analytic metric, approximate value, and looked at Hall of Fame defensive ends and pass rushers. From their years for now remember this, Myles Garrett is going into year 9 of his career, believe it or not.
It's
crazy, isn't it?
Can't believe he's been around that long.
And my favorite part when Myles Garrett came out of college was there was the knock on him, ready? He liked to read poetry. He's like smart and stuff.
Yeah, but can he tear a quarterback's head off?
Yeah, he likes to go to like art museums.
That's fine. Can he tear a quarterback's head
That's
off?
all I care
Yeah.
about.
He can do whatever he wants off the field.
There is a stereotype of two things, and it just hits enough for people to continue to use it. One, like with Myles Garrett, he likes stuff besides football.
Okay.
We want him just to love football.
Sure.
We don't want him to love art and poetry, and he likes cooking. And
But if you're not seeing an effect on his football by loving those things, what's the problem?
there's a stereotype from NFL scouts and NFL people. The other one is he comes from a rich family. He didn't want it bad enough. And Josh Rosen he's the poster boy for that.
Boy, hot tub in the dorm. And
he's the poster boy.
Never had
for
to work
that.
for anything and was going to be a tennis superstar. Didn't really like football all that much.
But there are kids coming from rich families who actually do play well.
Sure. But again, you have that more recent tale. Ooh, don't want that guy.
And all of these are different. Yeah, there could be a guy that likes poetry who doesn't love football, but there's a guy who loves poetry, also likes going on a field and, like you saying, dismembering people. And then he picks up his poetry and reads as they're picking up the body with an ambulance.
Yeah. Well, he does the poetry for the funeral.
Exactly. So Myles Garrett is now going into year 9. And they took this metric of all these great pass rushers. Randy White with the Dallas Cowboys back in the 70s and 80s. Bob Lilly in the 70s. Reggie White, obviously, with the Eagles and also with the Packers. Carl Eller and Alan Page with the Purple People Eater defense of the 70s with the Minnesota Vikings. The original sack artist, Deacon Jones, with the Rams back in the 60s and 70s. Jack Youngblood with the Rams. Jared Allen's going in the Hall of Fame. Pass rusher. Warren Sapp, hellacious pass rusher in Tampa. All these guys, their value, so to speak, from year 9 to 11 dropped, except one guy, Randy White.
Okay.
The rest of them, all their effectiveness, their performance, all dipped starting in year 9. So that's interesting. Does it mean anything? Maybe not. But it is, if you're going to give up all those draft picks and all that money for Myles Garrett, there is a chance that you get a guy whose best days could be behind him. So he could still be good.
Sure.
But he might not be the dominant force of nature that he is right now.
That can make somebody nervous.
It's something to think about.
I'm sure it is.
Just saying.
I mean, had a pretty on par with what he usually does this year. So I don't think if there's going to be a drop off, it's going to be immediate. But yeah, if you're trying to sign him to something long term, then yeah, maybe years 3 and 4 of that contract starts to slip a little bit. And again, you do have to take that into account because guess what? He's going to command a lot of dough.
A lot of dough, and you're giving away a lot to get him too. Because if you're the Browns, you want. Can I have your whole draft? Give me your whole draft.
Now, again, for the most part of his career, he's been, for the most part, healthy. Mm-hmm. So, especially in these last couple of years. So that's not as big of a concern. And, we'll see.
It was a very interesting post to read about how all those guys dropped starting in year 9. I guess, again, if you're a front office that cares about that sort of thing, if you look at analytics and you look at numbers like that and look at values and things like, you might go, it might be something to make you want to structure a contract in a certain way.
Sure.
Still give him a ton of money on the front end, but protect yourself down the road a bit. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Our Firehouse Sub Text the Hour is next. David Dare, Tyler Head, Terry Ford, halftime show here on The Game. Our Firehouse Sub text the hour at 803-404-6100. A couple other quick notes from the world of football, because this is football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Dak Prescott yesterday talking to the media, because that's what you do in Dallas. Everybody talks to the media and fails miserably in the playoffs if they get there. Dak Prescott said something. Now, when you hear it, you're going to laugh, because it is laughable, but then we'll talk about it for a minute. Here's Dak Prescott talking about how the Cowboys fared against the Eagles this past year and what Dak thinks about next season for the Cowboys.
From that level. I mean, I feel like we compete with the Eagles and beat them for the most part when we played them. I don't want to say check the record when they're the guys holding the trophy right now. So credit to them. They've earned it and they deserved it by all means. But, yeah, very close, especially even watch the NFC game, the NFC Championship. And those two teams that we battle against each and every year, a couple of times. And as I said, feel confident about we've gotten the better part each and every time. To see it in such a dominating fashion, credit to them. It's our turn and it's on us. All right.
See, we could have won the Super Bowl because, you know, how we played against the Eagles.
Sure.
Is, you know, you want me to tell you about how the Cowboys played the Eagles this year?
Not good.
First game in Dallas, it was a nail-biter. Cowboys, I mean, you didn't know which way it was going to go. Philadelphia only won 34-6.
Yep.
Second game, another one. I mean, edge of your seat. You're on the edge of your seat if you had the Cowboys in 33. Because the Eagles only won by 34.
That's a combined 75-13.
I mean, look, the Cowboys.
Again, Dak was injured.
Yeah. But the Cowboys, I mean, they were right there, man.
Yeah. Now, when you go back and look the past couple of years, they have, for the most part, split the series, both in 23 and 22.
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys won at home. Eagles won at home. So, I mean,
much better Cowboy teams than we saw.
Much better Cowboy teams. So he's not completely wrong, but isn't that just like, don't you just hate the people that do that? Like when you accomplish something, like, yeah, but I could have done that.
Well, that's like and then this one's legit. Michigan fans right now, football.
Sure.
Yeah, Ohio State won the national championship. Really cool. Didn't beat us again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Again. This one, but to be fair here, what do you want Dak Prescott to say? In some ways?
Hey, we suck and we're never going to beat the Eagles.
Them.
Like, yeah, of course he's going to say that.
They kicked the snot out of us last year. What do you want him to say? But the problem with the Cowboys is sometimes, you know, the best thing to say, nothing. Just stop talking. Stop talking and start doing. In Dallas, you know what they win Lombardi Trophy for? Talking.
Yeah.
Starting with their blabby owner. Right? Stop talking and start achieving something. And last one here, and then we'll get to our Firehouse Subtext the hour. Marcus Spears from ESPN talking about the Kellen Moore hiring. And, of course, Kellen Moore now the new head coach in New Orleans. Hit it, Dave.
I think they should be, Boogie. First, it's symbolic of a restart. Obviously, we know, this team has some salary cap issues that they got to deal with, and y'all know how I feel about the salary cap. But it's a real thing in New Orleans. Shout out to Mina Kimes. The other thing is, too, like I think about the move that they made from Jim Haslett and when they went to Sean Payton. The team was kind of waffling middle. The season before Sean Payton showed up, the team was 3-13. And it was an offensive-minded coach that had a lot of experience being an offensive coordinator. And potentially there's some correlation here. One being the fact that they both were in Dallas. I don't know what that means, but it means something. And then, two, with Kellen Moore, we've seen his progression. I talked about him after this Super Bowl about willing to commit to the run and understanding what this team was built for dynamic-wise. So I think going to New Orleans, they should be excited. Obviously, there's a lot of work to do, but there are some pieces there that he's going to be able to show if he's a good enough offensive mind and head coach to at least give people a glimpse of hope.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Can Kellen Moore be a leader? Can he set a culture? Things of that nature. Let me talk about this yesterday. As an offensive coordinator, honestly, he took steps in the right direction because to me, I just felt like he always wanted to throw the ball. And now he really actually built an offense around the strength of a team in Philly. What do you got there on the Firehouse Subtext the hour?
Jeff, could Aaron Rodgers go back to Jeopardy?
There you go. I mean, remember, he wanted to be the host.
He did. We thought he was going to retire then, take over.
And you know the funniest part about him? This is before we really went like this with Aaron Rodgers. We weren't eye-rolling Aaron Rodgers yet.
No, we didn't know how bizarre he was yet.
But it was a little weird that he wanted to be the permanent host of Jeopardy. You were like, every now and then you pop in there, dude. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But you really want to be the permanent host of Jeopardy. I should have kind of gave us right there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
This guy.
Yeah.
Well, he might have a chance because we said this yesterday. Who really wants him right now to be their quarterback?
I wouldn't.
Out of any team has a chance to win, especially.
Yeah, what value does he bring to you besides what he's done in the past?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Right now, at 41 years old, one good Achilles coming off the season he had with the Jets, nothing you see tells you, wow, that guy is our missing piece of quarterback.
Right.
Just not right now.
Nope.
We'll see. But yes, Jeopardy, always a fallback. Or maybe some of those other good games. He could be a judge. Like Judge Judy?
Maybe.
Or Judge Mathis?
He could, I don't know, in American Idol, always looking for a new judge.
And they always, or The Voice, they always rotate judges.
There you go. Sure.
That'd be good. All right, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions. Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions coming up next here on the Halftime Show on The Game. What's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry, Gamecock Traditions. Tyler Head, Dave Adair, Terry Ford. We're rolling the halftime show here on The Game. Mia O'Brien, who does a really good women's basketball podcast. We're going to have her on at 2:30, talk South Carolina, UCLA, Southern Cal, LSU, Texas. Just talk about the women's basketball scene with Mia. Again, that's coming up bottom of the hour, 2:30 here on the halftime show. What's trending at 2 on The Game? Dawn Staley on Carolina Calls last night. Let's get this ready here, Dave. Dawn looked back a little bit more, now that she's had a few days to get past it, looking back a little bit more on that loss to Texas. And here's Dawn Staley.
Texas disrupted us. I thought we had a really good game plan in knowing that they were going to make entry passes hard. We just couldn't execute it. And I think early foul trouble really impacted our ability to defend the way we needed to defend. Because psychologically it does have an impact. If Sanaya Fagan gets 2 fouls, she can't be as aggressive, and quite honestly, she just played conservatively, and we're not a conservative defensive team. And when you're able to get us to do that, it just creates so many other problems. Tina Pau picked up 2 early fouls, so you don't want to get in your gap help because you just don't want to put yourself in a position to pick up another foul. So I think we just impacted by the fouling situation and their ability to make each pass really hard for us to just get into any fluidity from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, Texas kind of dictated their will, lack of a better term, upon South Carolina in that loss. And the foul trouble's the thing. If you play basketball at any level and they actually call fouls in a game, you get a couple quick fouls, all of a sudden you're not as aggressive on defense. You might not be even as aggressive on offense, like, driving to the rack because you don't want to get a foul called on you.
Well, and who has had to step up defensively since Ashley Watkins has been out? It's been Sanaya Fagan. So when she's limited in how aggressive she can be, it's going to hurt you.
Yeah, and so that was the thing. And then you have to play differently. But then again, this is just Texas dictating what they want to do on you. And, sometimes in a long basketball season, it gets you.
Yep.
Now, the women will be taking on Florida. That's Thursday night here on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG. Again, it'll be a 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip here on The Game in Columbia. No, here on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG. Aaron Fitt from D1 Baseball was on the postgame show yesterday with Jay and Elijah. And, South Carolina is picked near the bottom of the SEC in baseball this year.
Yep.
By everybody. Everybody. And they're not in the top 25.
No.
Here's Aaron Fitt from D1 Baseball, cut one, Dave, talking about the expectations for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I'm still trying to get a feel for it, to be honest with you. It feels like this team is lying in the weeds a little bit. The spotlight is not going to be on them. I don't know if anybody's picking them, to be certainly not a top 25 team. I don't think they've been ranked anywhere. And
I don't think so.
I don't know that people even expect them necessarily to be a regional team. And so it's not a bad place to be when you're a program that has some talent and certainly has pedigree. I mean, this team has a chance to surprise people because there are guys here. I mean, there's some players that have experience of winning and superstar players like Ethan Petrie. I guess a superstar player, Ethan Petrie. We know how good that guy is, and I don't know. It's just how good are they going to be? I mean, it's a great question. Obviously, we're not really buying in. We're, again, not picking them to be in a regional, but I'm also not going to say, they got no chance. They stink. I think they're absolutely a contender to be a regional team, but it's just the SEC. There's so many good teams in this league. You got to jump some. And so, I think Paul Maneri has been around the block a few times. He certainly has a knack for getting the most out of the players on his roster and pulling the right levers at the right time as you get into the season. I think his in-season adjustments is one of the most impressive things about him. I feel like every year, at LSU, he'd come up with some guy who was like a position player only, and all of a sudden he's a key pitcher, or vice versa. Some guy you never heard of who just emerges, in May, and is the guy for him. And so that's something to keep an eye on: is which levers is he going to pull in key spots down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation level is there's not a big expectation outside of Columbia, South Carolina for this team, but there's a lot of pieces. There's guys left over from the last couple years when South Carolina's been in the postseason, and you got the makings of a possible good rotation. We'll see where that goes. You'd love to see like an Eli Jersenbeck get himself together.
Yeah, and I think it's
Roman Kimball.
Yeah, I think it's right now believed that he's going to be probably the midweek guy. And again, we saw the pitching rotation shift around so much last year. So that can always change. But ideally, you'd like to have your main three guys stay your main three guys because that means they're doing well and you're not having to change things up. So, between, Becker, McCoy, and Eskew, being your three-man rotation on the weekends, hopefully it stays that way.
Also, Aaron Fitt from D1 Baseball. This is Cut 3, Dave. The importance of this series with Clemson. Look, this is such a long year. And it's tough to make grand proclamations before you even start SEC play. But I've heard some people say, look, we'll know a lot about South Carolina in the Clemson series. Well, you'll know a lot about South Carolina at that point in time in the season.
Sure.
It's not going to tell you that they can't get better as the year goes along. But here's Aaron Fitt talking about the importance of the Clemson series. Cut 3, Dave.
I don't know if I'd call it any bigger than ever. I mean, it's like you said, it's big every year, and I think it's just kind of the same. I think it's just has a little bit extra intrigue anytime you've got a new coach, and especially a famous coach like Paul Mainieri, a national championship winning coach. That adds to the intrigue a little bit. It's certainly one that we're going to have our eye on. Especially because it's a big barometer for South Carolina in particular. I think we kind of know Clemson's going to be a good club, and we have them 15. We're probably a little low on them, to be honest. They probably wind up being a top 10 team. They tend to, I think, achieve a little bit above their talent under Bakich. It seems to be the way that's going. And actually, I think their talent is pretty darn good. I think we're just a little light on them, to be honest with you. But they're going to be good. But for South Carolina, that is a really important barometer of kind of where they're at before we get to conference play. How do they handle, a good opponent in a high-pressure environment? I think it's going to be fascinating, and I know we're going to have boots on the ground of that series, and it's certainly one of the highlights of the conference slate.
The Clemson series is a thing, and you got to experience it. Before you come here, you don't realize, but Clemson, South Carolina, that 3-game baseball series, it's got the intensity of an NCAA tournament game.
It does, and as far as two opposing fan bases from two different conferences, I don't think you can get much more intense than what you have. And look, these teams have squared off in the postseason. They're obviously both take baseball, baseball very seriously. I was actually explaining to our guy Dimitri this morning, just how serious baseball is taken in the state of South Carolina. He was kind of surprised. I'm like, it's just what it's like here for Clemson and for South Carolina. And the history, both programs have had, specifically South Carolina. Again, there's a reason why the expectations are so high every single year. And that series being, a couple weeks before you start playing against the SEC gives you your true litmus test. Because, it's one thing to run through Sacred Heart and Queens and all these schools that you don't know where they're located in the country. But if you can go out there and beat Clemson and take 2 out of 3 against them, then you got something.
It makes you feel better about where you're at before you kick into SEC play. So it'll be a nice little early season barometer in the non-conference, just to kind of, okay, where are we at? Who are we? And how do we feel about things moving forward? Aaron Fitt, one last cut here. This will be cut 2, Dave. Aaron Fitt from D1 Baseball on with Jay and Elijah yesterday, just kind of talking about under-the-radar teams for this upcoming season.
Well, Mississippi State feels like they're kind of fit into that category as a team that was struggling for a couple of years, got back on track, got into a regional last year as a 2 seed and reached a regional final. They're like a lower half of the top 25 type team. I don't think people are really viewing them as necessarily an Omaha team, but I think they have that kind of potential. Georgia is one that is, I think, getting plenty of buzz, but I'm really high on Georgia. I actually like that team even more probably than, some of the teams we have ranked ahead of them, LSU, Tennessee. I think Georgia for me is might wind up having the best pitching staff in the country outside of maybe A&M. I mean, I really, really excited about their staff, and they've done a good job, of course, in the portal. They've just crushed that 2 years in a row under Wes Johnson. So that's one that they're preseason top 10 team, so I'm not like going way out on a limb here, but I think they're going to be even better than that. I think they're one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the country. Is what I'm feeling. And then if you go a little bit farther down the pecking order, Ole Miss strikes me as a team that people are sleeping on, and we don't have them as a regional team. I wanted them to be in our projections. I lost that debate. That happens, but it's again, people forget how good Hunter Elliott is, and this guy was a freshman All-American, one of the best freshmen in the country, for a team that won the national championship. And then he missed 2 years with injury. It was kind of weird timing with the Tommy John, and then he had a little setback. But now he's back. He's great in the fall. He's one of the more accomplished pitchers in the country when you think what he's actually done. So get him back with Riley Maddox and Mason Nichols. There's a lot of experience and stuff in that rotation, which is a separator around the league. When a lot of teams have question marks on the mound, I think that's going to be a pretty darn good rotation. So that's a team that, again, way in the weeds, that I think is going to be a postseason caliber team.
Wes Johnson has done a heck of a job at Georgia, man. I mean, I'm just sitting here looking at his resume again. Was at Arkansas, very successful for 2 years. Jumped to the Minnesota Twins and did a really nice job for 3 years with the Twins.
Yep.
And then LSU went. How much you making it with the Minnesota Twins?
He did the rare thing of jumping back into college.
Yeah, because LSU went, we'll pay you more than they're paying you in Minnesota.
And helped LSU win the national championship a couple years ago, and took over at Georgia last year. And they were so darn close to making it to a Omaha last year. Got to a Super, I believe, if I remember correctly. And just came up a little bit short there. And I think I go back to last year, where Georgia came in and knocked Carolina around here at Founders Park. And I think, considering the fact that Wes Johnson was in his first year at Georgia, people that are already a little turned off by Coach Kingston is like, that guy's in his first year. He's not supposed to be able to come in here and do that to you.
Right. I mean, you think about that for a minute. You got to, one thing with South Carolina was, okay, as we're fighting these other big dogs in the SEC, well, we know we'll beat Georgia. We're circling that for some easy W's. Well, not anymore. And that's the one thing I think bothers this fan base more than anything, is watching some of these programs in the SEC that South Carolina used to, just boat race, all of a sudden leaping over South Carolina in how good of a program they are. And that was one of the things that frustrated a lot of folks in the Mark Kingston era, was, wait a minute, Georgia's not supposed to be better than us. Oh, hold on here. I mean, look what Vitello's done at Tennessee.
Yeah.
I was told that before Vitello got there, a Tennessee baseball game was where students went and studied because it was so quiet. Yeah. Now the place is sold out. It's packed. Look at the success Vitello's had.
Yep.
Yeah, who won the national championship?
It'd be Tony Vitello in Tennessee.
Yeah. So that's what drives Gamecock fans crazy, is stuff like that.
Yep.
And that's why there's a new guy in the dugout.
Yep. And a guy that, again, has been there before, and you hope's going to do the same thing here.
A lot of expectation. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Again, the over-under contest this week, the over-under 1.5 home runs for Ethan Petrie versus Sacred Heart this weekend. Just go to 1075thegame.com, look for the over-under contest, click on that baby, pick the over or the under, put in your info. If you are right, your name will go into the pot of the other names who got it correct, and a winner will be picked for a gift card from Gamecock Traditions. We'll continue on with what's trending at 2. Very interesting stuff about Joe Burrow and what he's saying in Cincinnati. Also, we'll play something that I found quite amusing from Aaron Boone, the Yankees manager. And Jay Billis tells you his thoughts on the SEC when it comes to men's college basketball. All that's coming up next. And Maya O'Brien to talk women's basketball at the bottom of the hour as well. Halftime show here on The Game. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Bottom of the hour, Mia O'Brien will hang out with us, talk some women's basketball. Does an excellent. You had her partner on here recently.
We had Mitchell Northam on Monday with me and Dimitri, and got his thoughts. Obviously, reacted a lot to what happened with the game against Texas on Sunday, which he even said, "Hey, I was a little surprised by that," but again, not the end of the world. And Carolina's got an opportunity to still close out the regular season and wrap up the regular season title in the SEC. And I think, from what I read, if they and Texas both win out in conference play, they will coin flip for the number 1 seed at the tournament here in a couple of weeks.
So, yeah, we will have a conversation with Mia O'Brien about that and her college basketball. I mean, the podcast is college basketball, WNBA, and everything. We're going to focus, obviously, on college basketball with Mia, bottom of the hour. All right. So, this is interesting. Jay Billis, who played in the ACC, by the way, at Duke.
Yep.
Back in the 80s, when Duke really got themselves going again under Mike Krzyzewski. I mean, they made a Final Four under Bill Foster, maybe roughly 5-6 years before that with Gene Banks, Mike Jaminski, and all those guys. But then they kind of hit a lull. Mike Krzyzewski, his first year, Krzyzewski was 11-17. People forget that. Then Coach K got it cooking. Billis was part of that first Final Four squad. So here's Jay Billis. And Dave, let's get to this cut from today, cut number 13 I'm going to call for. Here's Jay Billis talking about just how tough the Southeastern Conference is in men's basketball.
Paul, I have never seen anything remotely like what we're seeing in the Southeastern Conference this year. The non-conference success has not been seen since the ACC in the mid-1980s. That's so long ago. I played in the league back then. But the biggest difference in comparing those two is the ACC was 8 teams then. It's a lot easier to have 8 really good teams than it is to have 16 really good teams. And it's going to cause the tournament selection process a problem because you're going to have teams with losing records in conference that are going to be significantly better than some teams that are finishing in the top 3 or 4 in a couple other leagues, power leagues. They're going to have to really dig in because every game in this league is quad 1. It's absurd. I've never seen anything like that. In South Carolina, you could say, okay, they're the quote-unquote worst team in the Southeastern Conference. They haven't won a game in league. They beat Clemson before the conference started. Like they had a 14-2 record or something like that coming into conference play. This is the most powerful basketball league, top to bottom, that there has ever been.
Think about that. Jay Billis saying it's the most powerful conference, top to bottom, ever. Ever. I mean, you had some Big East years back in the old school. I mean, Big East got 3 teams in the Final Four one year. Big East was a powerhouse. ACC used to be a powerhouse before they expanded for football and screwed up everything else. So for Jay Billis to say that this SEC is from top to bottom the toughest ever. That's something, man.
I mean, it's hard to argue with that. You're realistically looking at potentially 14 teams getting in, maybe 13 or 12 at worst, I think. Like Arkansas has kind of been floating on that line with bracketology as of late. I think we can definitively say Carolina and LSU will not be making the NCAA tournament, but everybody else outside of that, it's still in the consideration, certainly.
Yeah, and even with South Carolina, I mean, this is interesting. And yeah, 2 of the 3 wins were over teams with losing records right now. But South Carolina is undefeated versus the ACC. Mm-hmm. And they took out right now the number 2 team in the ACC in Clemson, who just finished at home beating Duke.
Which is a crazy game to look back on now, considering what this team's been for the past month and a half.
Yes. I mean, you probably go to Clemson because their resume is going to have a loss to a team that's winless in their conference. Mm-hmm. But that just kind of shows you a little bit of what's going on with the SEC. And, of course, you know, if you're a Carolina fan, you go, yeah, it's okay, but we'd be up near the top of the ACC, baby.
Those hypotheticals.
That transient version of everything. Sure. You beat Clemson, and Clemson beat Duke. So, basically,
you're the ACC champion.
You're the ACC champion.
Yeah. I don't think conference realignment works quite that way.
No, not really, but it sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does again, good. For what's been a tough season, you're looking for anything you can get, right?
But it is, when you think about the close losses South Carolina has had in conference, it just shows you how close you are to being around 500 in the league, which would put you in the NCAA tournament or right on the bubble, teetering for the tournament, with some really good wins, and instead you're 0 for the SEC.
Yep.
And you're scuffling.
But once again, you got a ranked team coming in here tonight, and Ole Miss that you mentioned the line being 4.5. I fully expect Carolina to play them to about 5 points or so, be really close to the end, and ultimately come up short because that's what they've done with every other ranked team they played at home this year. That's just kind of what they are. And again, if a couple things go differently in all those games, yeah, you could realistically have, 3, 4, 5 wins, and then, yeah, we're saying you're going to be a low seed, but you're still in the tournament. That's how close it is in the SEC. But, yeah, you don't win any conference games. Sorry, you're not getting in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's when you look at the strength of this conference and how good it's been, and you look where you've just come up short over and over and over again, that just shows you the frustration you have to have, because if you could have executed and not made mistakes at crunch time, where you could be right now,
right?
Because of how good this league is.
Sure.
And instead, you're on the outside looking in.
And I used the analogy earlier. You remember when you were like a kid and you were sick and your parents made you stay inside all day and you looked outside and your buddies are playing, basketball or baseball or whatever, and you can't go outside because you're sick and you're just got your face pressed up against the window? That's South Carolina. You're looking at the rest of this league that's having this amazing year and going to get everybody in the NCAA tournament, and you're just sitting by the wayside like, not you. Yeah, you're a part of it, but you're not really a part of it.
Got your face up against the window like a dog.
Exactly. You so badly want to be out there playing, and you're trying everything you can, but it's not working.
By the way, it was a good idea when you missed school. You got out of school.
Yeah.
It was great.
But then, like, when everybody else gets out of school and they're outside playing and having a good time, you were sick today. Sorry.
Ready. Mom, I feel a lot better. Mom. Can I go outside?
No.
Did
you go to school today? Nope.
And just put your face up against the window like a dog.
Yeah. Had the same rule. If you're sick, you're staying in.
All right. And again, 6:30 tonight. Pregame, 7 o'clock tip against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a team that, they guard you. They play D. Chris Beard is big on defense. They're not a big team at all. They fire a ton of threes. Could you beat Ole Miss? Yeah. I mean, you could. Ole Miss is not on the level of the top teams. They're not Auburn. They're not Alabama. They're not really even Florida. Ole Miss is good. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament, but it's a team. If they bring their C game tonight, you got a shot. You legitimately do. And you said it earlier, and I agree with you. We all pretty much feel like poor shot selection, a putback off an offensive rebound. What's going to beat them at the end?
Yeah.
That's just the way it feels.
Yeah, and look, they've played close games, losses to Mississippi State and Texas A&M. That game against Mississippi State was on the road. They've kind of gotten things back on track the past couple of games with winning 3 out of the last 4. The only loss being to number 1 Auburn, which, hey, that's understandable. But they did just beat Kentucky the other week before South Carolina. South Carolina played them, so we'll see what happens tonight.
All right, again, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and our affiliate 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach with Derek and Judge Manning. All right, Mia O'Brien will talk some more hoops with Mia. She does a excellent women's basketball podcast. We're going to talk with her next here on the halftime show. David Dare steering the ship. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We go to 3 on the game.
Hey, turn Terry's mic off.
All right, time to talk women's hoops. Sponsored by Lexington Discount Homes. Tyler Head, Terry Ford, David Dare here on the Halftime Show. Bringing somebody who knows more about it than us three put together. Mia O'Brien, the women's basketball podcast. Hey, thanks for jumping in. We appreciate it. We know you have nothing else to do but to hang out with us, so thank you.
Hey, it's all good, friends. I'm happy to make it happen. I actually am going on vacation tomorrow, so I'm very glad we could sneak this in before I jet off for a few days.
So what exotic locale are we rolling off to before we get into this hoop talk?
Ooh, we are headed to the Keys for the very first time, so it indeed is a little exotic. I mean, then again, the whole state of Florida probably could be considered exotic when you get down to it. But, yeah, never been before, so very excited to venture down to those waters.
I think you can leave the snow coats at home for that one. I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that down there.
Yeah, I think everybody assumes I'm going home to New Jersey, and I'm like, no, they got a foot of snow yesterday. Why would I ever want to go back there?
And that's why the state of Florida exists in the wintertime.
And when you go to the Keys, send pictures to your family in New Jersey while they're scraping their windshields.
Bingo. Exactly. You already know it there.
And they'll send you back the middle finger emoji.
Exactly. Mia O'Brien hanging out with us. All right, Mia, let's get a perspective outside of Columbia, South Carolina. Obviously, the Gamecocks, looking to defend a national championship, just lost to Texas over the weekend in Austin. They've lost twice this year, obviously at Westwood against the top-ranked Bruins as well. This team last year went undefeated, obviously rolled to a national championship. Give me your thoughts on this year's version of South Carolina as they move forward, finishing up the year and getting into the postseason.
Yeah, this is a team that ultimately it looks different than any other Dawn Staley has rolled out in the better part of the last decade, and it's solely because there is not a one true alpha back to the basket center. And I don't want to default and say that the alpha on Dawn's teams have always been that 5, but when you look at Asia Wilson, when you look at Aaliyah Boston, when you look at Camila Cardoso, I don't think I'm generalizing when I say that has tended to be the bus driver for the South Carolina Gamecocks over the better part of the last decade. And so, yes, you have, Sanaya Fagan, who certainly has playing experience as a true senior. You have Joyce Edwards, who many people believe could contend for the National Freshman of the Year award in the front court, but at the same time, the way that Dawn is able to substitute and operate this roster, because there is so much depth, I don't want to compare it to a hockey team. I certainly don't want to compare it to the defensive substitutions for the football team that I cover here in Jacksonville last year, which we joked were like hockey shift rotations. But ultimately, she has that capability, and she's taking advantage of it. And a lot of times, having that depth has been a feather in the cap of South Carolina this year. The reason they've been able to run with the likes of an LSU, the reason that they are able to contend in what I believe is the best conference in America is because of the depth that they have. But ultimately, they still lack that go-to when the moment is crunch time. Who do you go to? Who is the face of the program? And while I'm okay with saying, hey, there's a couple different faces of the programs and it's about the name on the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey, ultimately, if you don't have that alpha dog, it's going to come back to haunt you in the end. And I think that's what really got them against Texas over the weekend. And I think it's unfortunately what's going to come back to haunt South Carolina at some point during the NCAA tournament.
Of course, one of the biggest stories with this team this year is losing Ashlyn Watkins now really about a month ago. And since then, they have played Texas twice, beat them once, and obviously lost the other day. In your opinion, what is the difference in this team between when Watkins was playing and now without her?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they didn't have her the first few weeks of the season. No one knew if they'd actually get her back because of the legal situation off campus back in September, or I guess on campus, but away from the court, point being. And so I think that ultimately it comes down to, I don't want to say the alpha because I'm going to get to my big pitch for Malaysia Fulwiley to be the National Player of the Year here momentarily. I don't think your go-to player has to be a center, has to be a forward. But again, historically for South Carolina, that is who the go-to option has been. And so I'm not saying Ashlyn Watkins would have been that go-to option, but certainly the system, and it has adapted and it has evolved since the days of Asia Wilson to Aaliyah to then Camila. But at the same time, that has been who the offense runs around. And I think when Ashlyn Watkins was playing, at the very least, she was a steady hand that really calmed the waters of, let's be real, I mean, Chloe Kitts didn't play all that much last year. A lot is being asked of her now in Ashlyn Watkins' absence. We alluded to Joyce Edwards being a freshman. Dawn Staley has been blessed that so many of her true freshmen, including Malaysia Wiley, have been able to step in and immediately impact the game. That's not to say that Joyce hasn't been able to do that, but it's not at the level of some other freshmen we've seen in the Southeastern Conference over the last few years. And so I think with Ashlyn Watkins, the biggest thing you lose is that steady hand in the front court and, quite frankly, throughout the roster. And part of that, again, goes back to the hockey shift rotation, because as much as it's great that you have depth and you can keep your players fresh, I still don't know why. And I understand that part of why she came out was because of a shoulder injury in crunch time against Texas over the weekend. Why is Malaysia Wiley, who I believe is the most athletic player, if not one of the best players in all of college basketball, on the bench? Apparently she was cleared to enter the game because she had come back in for a couple of minutes before she rode the pine the last 6-7 minutes, I guess, before the final 2 minutes. And that was confounding to me. And while, yes, I know part of it is because of some questionable defense at times and maybe being a little too eager on offense, maybe turning the ball over at different junctures, for me, she's a walking bucket. And at this point in time, you got to try whatever you can to spark this team and use that electricity to carry you through, because you don't have that steady hand in Ashlyn Watkins.
Mia and Mitch, the women's basketball podcast. Mia O'Brien hanging out with us talking women's basketball on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Dare on the game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. Okay, let's look at the country real quick. Mia, obviously UCLA is number one. Southern Cal is in the mix. You've got Texas. You've got UConn. I mean, South Carolina and UConn are 1-2 in net rating. Give us a little rundown on the rest of the country. And is it just UCLA right now that much better than everybody else, or is this thing going to be a real mosh pit before it's over with?
Yeah, I think it's as crowded a field as you're going to see, Terry. While I am a believer in Lauren Betts, I have questions about UCLA solely based upon who they've played so far and the depth of the Big Ten in 2025. Yes, obviously they routed the Gamecocks at home in Westwood. That's their best win of the season. But since then, they have played a grand total outside of this upcoming Inter-LA matchup this Saturday against USC. They have played 3 ranked teams outside of South Carolina. And part of that is the Big Ten being down. They beat a Michigan team that starts 3 true freshmen. They beat a Maryland team that, quite frankly, Maryland has tried to give away games to both USC and UCLA in the last month. And they were able to squeak one out against an Ohio State team that, while certainly maybe it's not as good as everybody thinks it is, I'm a believer in Cody McMahon, so I'm not going to poo-poo them at all. So I think that the Big Ten is down comparatively, and so I am unsure if UCLA, when push comes to shove, will be able to hang with the big dogs of the SEC. I do think Lauren Betts will be able to, and I think she is that true back-to-the-basket center that, quite frankly, South Carolina is lacking right now. I also think that you can make the argument that I am for you against UCLA. You could also make it about UConn right now, because UConn goes down to Rocky Top. They lose for the first time since 2007 to Tennessee, and it looked like, Gino Auriemma was very critical post-game. It looks like Paige Beckers didn't really want to be there at times. And I think part of it is because UConn has just been running an absolute, running the table in the Big East and beating everybody by 30 every night, because that's going to be a 2 or a 3 bid league. And while I don't think the Big Ten is going to be a 2 or a 3 bid league, I do think that the lack of depth could come back to haunt UCLA in the end. My team right now that I would say, hey, if you had to put a futures bet on anyone to win the national title, to even be the number 1 overall seed, it is Notre Dame. It is so exciting what Niele Ivey has been able to do in South Bend. The fact that we prayed that the combination of Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo would be as exciting in real life as it was on paper. Neither of those players were able to play together last year, with Miles taking a medical redshirt and then, of course, Hidalgo being a true freshman. It has lived up to the hype and then some. And when you couple that with the pieces they have around them, I wouldn't go as far as to say that their roster is as deep as, say, South Carolina or as deep as LSU, who I believe has the best big 3 in the sport right now. But Notre Dame has a championship DNA, and they have 2 of the top 10 best players in the country right now, and I believe that'll carry them far in the NCAA tournament.
Mia O'Brien, co-host Mia and Mitch, the women's basketball podcast. Talk about where people can pick this thing up, watch it, listen to it, whatever they want to do. Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So our link tree is out there. If you check out my profile at Mia O'Brien TV, I've got it up there on X and Instagram and all that good stuff. But it's, of course, powered by OG Triangle Media. So search them on YouTube, find them on Spotify, any of that good stuff. You can just search, great SEO search term, The Women's Basketball Podcast. You will find us on YouTube. You will find us on Spotify, Apple Pod, all that good stuff. And give it a listen, give it a try, because, hey, folks, football season's over. It's time you turn your attention to the greatest sport in the world, college basketball.
All right, and I'll email you Tyler and I shirt sizes for our T-shirt from the Keys.
Oh, absolutely. I thought you were going to say the Women's Basketball Podcast T-shirt. I said Dimitri hasn't printed those yet.
You can get that airbrushed on the front of the shirt.
Absolutely. Wait. You're waiting for Dimitri to print out something?
I mean, he's my producer. I am in need. He is my leader into this great wide world of multimedia.
Dimitri and leader in the same sentence.
That's an interesting combination.
Kind of dangerous. Well, good luck with that, Mia. Enjoy your time in the Keys. We're going to bug you again soon to come on back, okay?
Absolutely, guys. Best time of the year. Take care.
All right, we'll see you. It's Mia O'Brien, Mia and Mitch podcast, Women's Basketball Podcast. You can check it out. I just went to YouTube and found it. Very simple, very easy. All right. Hand off to Jay and Elijah, the post-game show. That is next. Also, our Firehouse Sub text the hour at 803-404-6100. Halftime show. Wrap his sucker up. David Ayer, Tyler Head, Terry Ford here on the game. All right, halftime show. Wrapping this baby up with our Firehouse Subtext the hour here in just a minute. David Dare running the board. Tyler Head, Terry Ford, Jay Phillips knocking stuff over as he comes. Remember, whatever microphone you hit will be the wrong one. You know that, sir.
Tell Dave to turn it on.
Just turn on microphones, Dave. We'll find it. We'll do our handoff, sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine Road. Firehouse Subtext the hour. Go for it, man.
Nameless Texter says, does it take just 1 year of being the best conference to brand yourself the best in the country in a particular sport, in reference to what Jay Bill has said about men's basketball? If so, the Big Ten would disagree with your assessment that the SEC is the best football conference.
Well, you know what? That's true, and I think it's more than 1 year, right? I mean, this year the SEC in basketball is ridiculous, and even Jay Bill has said top to bottom, in his mind, the toughest he's ever seen. There's some really good ACC years, man, and some really good big. You and I remember when the Big East and the ACC were behemoths.
I miss those days. I mean, I'm serious.
Honestly, I do too.
I miss those days. That was must-see television. I remember one spring break, my buddies and I, we were at the beach, and it was a big group of us, guys, girls. This is college.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Friday, right? Remember the old ACC tournament Friday?
Mm-hmm.
And like the girls were mad at us because we wanted to stay in the hotel and watch basketball again. They're like, we're at the beach. And we're like, yeah, but it's
quarters of the ACC tournament.
The best day is it was one of the top 5 sports days of the year.
And dude, you started at noon.
And now it's the ACC tournament has become just.
Well, when you sell your soul for football, this is what you do. You expand and sell your soul for football, and I get it, but I'm like you. I miss that. And the Big East
at the Garden,
the old school Big East,
those teams, man. No, those are good times.
When Jay Billis says that, and we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. When Jay Billis says that, I'm going to say yes. The SEC from top to bottom is really good, but when you start saying ever. Are we prisoner of the moment here? Because I remember those ACC and Big East years,
I think it's ever in terms of the fact that you've got a conference that is double the size of those, and therefore, I suppose that's what he's thinking.
Guess.
But I mean, I don't know. You give me, like the ACC of 1984, 85. The Big East of the late '80s. I don't know.
Well, this is where we can get the hypotheticals. Would 2025 Alabama beat 1985 Duke?
Or how about that Georgetown squad that won the whole thing with Ewing?
I mean, because there's no answer for
Reggie
Ewing.
Williams.
And I think back. I know it's not the same conference, but I still think back to how Hakeem's Houston Cougars didn't win a title. They were him and Clyde. They were so loaded.
Mr. Mean, Larry Minshew, and Michael Young.
That Houston
team was stacked.
Was Wilt better than Michael? Right. Was Michael better than LeBron? Is LeBron?
I know it's tough because the game was so different then. Yeah. Now it's space and pace and all that stuff. And back then you had back to the basket centers, and the 3-point shot wasn't as prevalent.
Remember that year where the ACC had one that was like 17 feet?
Those guys were killing it from 3. I'll never forget that.
I remember a couple of the gyms in the ACC the next season when they moved it back, like still had the paint stripe where they had to peel it up, and it's like that's not the right one.
It's like, no, bro, we experimented with that. We got to get rid of that.
Yeah, no, look, I've been covering the Southeastern Conference certainly since South Carolina joined. And it's never been better than it is right now from a depth perspective, which is very unfortunate for South Carolina because I don't think South Carolina is a terrible basketball team.
No.
They're the worst team in the SEC.
Best 0-10 team in the country.
But they can play, and
they're 3-0 against the ACC.
Yeah. And
they would be the ACC champions right now.
Because they beat Clemson and Clemson beat Duke.
By the transitive property, they're the best team in the ACC.
Yeah, well, and then
did they get the automatic bid?
Clemson 2 nights later went and beat Chapel Hill by 20?
I tell you, I was listening to the Field of 68 After Dark podcast, and they were talking about North Carolina. And basically, the thought process is from those guys who cover it in depth. You'll be surprised by this. The NIL money is not running to the basketball program like you would think.
Chapel Bill's taking it all.
Because, again, Belichick wants it all. And B, there's a lot of arrogance of, we're North Carolina. You don't care about NIL money, dude. You want to come here and play with these blue sneakers. They got to get into the world of now. They're having a little trouble adjusting to the world of now in Chapel Hill for basketball.
I think, and I'm not sure, I think they have an alum who's got his own brand of clothing, shoes, etc.
Rose, fashion designer?
Played in the
Is that a
NBA
fashion designer,
he
Jeff?
played for Washington. I know that when
he played.
He played for Washington, so they're not that good. But
Oh, okay.
I think he could probably come in and throw a couple of things at him if they really got him to. But again, he played for Washington, so I get it.
What kind of money does he really have?
Well, I don't know, but he's got a cool brand
Trillion?
of clothing. So
That, you know what? When I heard them talk about it, that's the first thing that went through my head is, wait a minute, Jumpman isn't giving him money?
I mean,
in the NIL
I'm
space?
sure that I don't know who's asked anymore. Like in all seriousness, I mean, I don't know what his level of involvement is.
He's got to fund his lawsuit against NASCAR. You guys don't know that?
I heard about his lawsuit. Well, that was legit.
Yeah, so he's paying those bills. Bill Lauer's undefeated.
See, I thought you would find that interesting. And North Carolina has an NIL problem in basketball, is what the rumor is.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's sort of like Clemson's NIL and portal problem. It'll get fixed.
No, Dabo said no way.
I got a hunch.
All right, Tyler Head, David Dare, nice work on the halftime show. What do you got coming up, man?
Alan's going to join us. Alan Cole talking a little hoops, a little baseball, and got an interesting look at Carolina's basketball program nationally. We'll do that for you.
That's coming up on the post-game show with Jay and Elijah. Thanks for hanging out with us. Do it again tomorrow, noon to 3.